Good afternoon, everybody. Oh, are we good back? Okay, sorry, I always forget to check with Mr. Hoda. Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome on this Tuesday, September 7th, for our special board meeting. I appreciate everyone making time to be here this afternoon. So we'll go ahead and call this meeting to order. And as we do at every board meeting, I'll go ahead and read our board norms and protocols. As a board, we agree to respect the differences of opinions in making decisions for the district, to follow best practices in managing the superintendent and the management of the board itself, to stay on task when conducting business for the district, including while at board meetings, to never surprise the superintendent or each other when conducting official business of the district, to read these norms at the beginning of each board meeting and at board workshops as a reminder of how to conduct our meetings, and to continually self-check to determine if we are following our norms when conducting district business. So again, thank you. It is Tuesday, September 7th, 1:30 p.m. And again, good to see everybody today. So Ms. Downing, would you please do a roll call?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, present.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, present.
Janie Humphreys,
Janie Humphreys, present.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, present.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, present.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, present.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, present.
Thank you. Would entertain a motion to approve today's special agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Downing?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys,
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Great, thank you. First on our agenda is our Human Resources Report. And good afternoon, Dr. Stubblefield.
Good afternoon.
Would entertain a motion to approve the HR report.
So moved.
Second.
Second.
Moved in second. Questions, discussion? If not, Ms. Downing?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphreys,
Janie Humphreys, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Great, thank you. Next, the next agenda item, and I'll let Dr. Stubblefield introduce it or share some words, but I'll also just share, there's been a lot of discussion around vaccinations, COVID vaccinations, as we continue to deal with the pandemic, and today's agenda topic is really for us as a board to really just have an open dialogue about where we think regarding the COVID vaccinations for staff. So no action today, just really a conversation, but let Dr. Stubblefield share anything as well.
Okay, thank you, Randy. I just wanted to provide some background information to the board. As Randy shared, as we continue to navigate COVID, every day we learn new information and we see districts and businesses pivoting to do what they can to create safe environments for, in our case, for our students and our staff. I've been approached by staff, board members, community members, just inquiring about where the board or the district was in regards to requiring vaccinations. So I just wanted to share some information. One local school district that has already shared out about requiring a vaccination and or weekly testing is Quincy, Missouri School District. And also our local unified government has a similar requirement. So in both cases, they are saying staff have to be vaccinated or have to take a test weekly to ensure that they're not asymptomatic and going to work and potentially spreading the virus. So with those two scenarios that are local to us, we've been asked, and Randy decided that there will be a good topic for the board to engage in to make a determination if that's a direction at a later date, that if the board wants to move forward with that, and then for me to hear what additional information you may need if you're going to make a decision around that, and I could collect that and bring it to you at a later date. I also, in conjunction with this, wanted to share publicly with the community. As a staff, we continue to get new information and make adjustments when in regards to COVID. And one of the adjustments that we have made recently, after collaborating with our local health department and talking to other school districts, we were probably the only district who was still requiring a 14-day quarantine when no symptoms are present. And so in order to be in alignment with other districts and also to have tests available, we are adjusting our quarantine to 10 days. Some of those, we're starting to roll that out, but just wanted to take this opportunity publicly to say that, and we'll continue to be, communicate that out, but that is an adjustment that we're making to the quarantine as long as there's no symptoms, in order to be in alignment with other school districts and to have our students and staff in school as much as possible.
Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield, for that update and information. And as Dr. Stubblefield said, I mean, this is something that's continuing to change every day, and so our staff are really doing what we can to adapt and be flexible and make sure that we're trying to be as proactive as we can be with COVID. So with that, I'll go ahead and open it up to board members if there are any questions. As Dr. Stubblefield said, one thing that would be, if there's information that would be helpful to you as we dive through this topic, and if we decide to make a decision at some point, what would be helpful for you to help guide your decision-making as a board?
Randy,
Dr.
this
Wynn?
is
Oh.
Dr. Yeager. I have a question. If there could be some background on how this was brought up and where the recommendation came from, or this discussion, where is this stemming from? Is it because some of the other districts are doing it, or just a little background about this topic?
Sure, and I'll provide some context. Dr. Stubblefield, please chime in where you feel needed to. So Dr. Yeager, I think as we're dealing with continuing to deal with the pandemic and things continue to evolve and change, our district, our leadership is just asking questions about what can we do as a district to keep our staff and our students as safe as we can. We've seen other school districts have these conversations. We've seen some school districts move towards asking staff to be vaccinated or weekly test, and the unified government has also asked that of their employees. So we just, Dr. Stubblefield and I had a couple of conversations and thought, it'd be good to get a pulse of the board to see where we are, what we are thinking, how we feel, and again, no recommendations being made here today, just simply how does this board feel about asking our staff to be vaccinated and or weekly testing or whatever that might look like for us. Dr. Wynn?
Thank you, Mr. President. And I think we could add, I think the University of Kansas Hospital has also implemented similarly. I would support the policy, because it would become a policy, correct? Okay.
If the board wants it to be.
I mean, people get real squeezy, and when you talk about mandate, but so I'll use another word. But in this pandemic, within that, of course, there would be that special provision option. I would support even those who have the special provision option be tested weekly. I think that is the manner in which it's being done in our area. Now, I asked about, seems so long now, and not to invade anyone's privacy, how many of our staff are not unvaccinated? Do we know that?
Honestly, I don't. So to my knowledge, and if someone else, Kelly or anyone can chime in, to my knowledge, when we have, we don't know who's quarantined because not quarantined, vaccinated, because when they did it, it wasn't reported. But when we've had positive cases, in order for people not to have to quarantine, or they show to our nurse coordinator, they have to show proof of vaccination. I don't think we are collecting that information, so we don't have a definitive number, to my knowledge. I did speak with Mr. Goheen previously, and because it was asked, could we collect that information? And legally we can, we just would not be able, we would have to keep it in a separate file from their personnel file if we wanted to collect the information and get an idea of how many of our staff is vaccinated. So that's something that we can try together and bring forward to the next board meeting. I don't know if it's possible, or at least we can have a number in the future.
And
Yeah.
I said that because we had those opportunities for large numbers of our staff to get vaccinated. So I think the spirit is here. However, as a fight to not, I guess, fight the pandemic, this is a strategy that is logical, and it is, what other data would you need? Probably, a date certain, a 30-day period. I mean, how it's crafted probably means a lot to acceptance.
Yeah.
But it's not new, and it's not done in our immediate region. Thank you.
Mr. Lopez,
Ms.
Wanda Brownlee Page, I too would support a staff vaccination, and I think it's critical because our state legislature has mandated that we can't go back to virtual, only in a limited form. So we want to make sure the kids are here, they're learning, and I think all of us need to do whatever we can to make sure that everyone is safe and secure, as well as we want to respect everyone's right. But our goal is for these kids to be here and to learn, and they've lost quite a bit. So we're trying to make up, and we know that according to our legislature, we can't do virtual learning, so we got to do what we can to keep everyone safe and to keep them here, teachers, students, staff, everybody. And I know some people don't like it, I get that, but our goal is to keep everyone safe and to make sure that these kids get the best possible education they can possibly get, and to keep everyone safe. That's the key. Whether you're the nutritional worker, the bus driver, whatever your job is, we want you safe. We want you here. And I don't think that's asking too much.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Ms. Humphries?
My question would be, if we do have a high number of staff already vaccinated, what is going to be the effect of instituting this, and what difference will it make since so many of our students aren't eligible for vaccination? That's just one of the questions I would have.
Yeah, so if we do already have a high number of our staff vaccinated, that's great. What it will layer in there, if you follow the vaccinated or weekly testing, we would have we would know of those who are not vaccinated if they're asymptomatic and then coming into the school and possibly spreading the virus. Also, it will allow us, when we are looking at like quarantines and those kind of things, to know exactly what we're facing, given staff shortages or whole classes and those kind of things. But it would allow us just to have a better accountability around those things. And then the weekly testing would let us know, how, if the virus is spreading or if others may have it and don't know it because they're asymptomatic.
A sheet outlining the pros and the cons would help me very much when I'm speaking with people in the public as we talk about this, so that I can show them this is why it would be effective. It would just be another tool to help make the best decision that we can possible.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Ms. Clark?
Yeah, I would be able to support the vaccination or the weekly. I would really struggle with mandating our staff be vaccinated. So I just wanted to, I mean, that's where I stand.
And Mr. Lopez, we often hear some of the teachers say they're concerned about being infected by the students. Then it just seems common sense that we would want to protect ourselves. If I were teaching, I want to be the first one in line because I don't want to give anybody anything and I don't want to catch anything. So it just seems like it would make sense that we would want to do that so that we can protect each other.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Dr. Yeager had a comment.
I do have a question. We do get updates as it relates to outbreaks in the school. Would you clarify if the outbreaks that we've been notified of, it seems like a majority of them are coming from the student side and not the teacher side. Is that a fair assessment?
So I don't, as far as outbreaks, I don't know if we actually have had any. We haven't had any outbreaks. We've had positive cases, but we have had staff who have had to quarantine because they were close contacts and not vaccinated. So will that continue if they're not vaccinated? Yes. One of the things that we currently do, and when you look at the other policies of the other, like Kansas, Missouri, and UG, and I don't know about the University of Kansas, the hospital, but unvaccinated staff, if it's vaccinated staff don't have to use their personal leave if they're required to quarantine, and unvaccinated staff is something that's another layer in some of those policies. But we have had several staff members, if you look at the dashboard, who've had to quarantine, and typically if they're quarantining, it's because they are not vaccinated and they were a close contact.
Well, my concern is we've asked our teachers to do so much in addition to they worked when the vaccine was not available. They are voluntarily working with or without the vaccine. I'm not in support of mandating a vaccine for our staff. I believe it's a personal choice, and I don't feel like we should impact their leave or anything different or quote unquote have a penalty for not being unvaccinated, because I truly believe it's a personal choice. I would not feel comfortable supporting it. In addition, I believe that it's important for us to allow for us to listen to the policymakers and those who are over our schools to determine if the vaccine was part of the mandatory requirements for students or for staff. Then I believe it should come down from that. But us being a school district who serve and go above and beyond, I would not be supportive of a mandatory vaccine. Also, I would like to add that sometimes we make decisions based on what other people are doing, which may or may not work for us, because if we have a substitute coming in, knowing that we're heavily dependent on substitutes coming in, filling in, et cetera, will we require them to have a vaccine? Will we require the people who are transporting, how far would we take it? We're starting with the teachers now, but would that soon be the bus drivers? Would that soon be all staff? Would it be anyone who's in contact with the teachers? So I don't think it would just be a mandate for just small groups of people. I think if a mandate is going, I think that we would end up having a bigger impact than maybe we should about people's personal decision making.
Ms. Drew?
Thank you. I just think that we as a board need to meet in an executive session so that we can talk about this in detail, specifically to make a decision, and hopefully we can come out with a unification to the public so that we'll be able to address these issues and do it in the right way.
Thank you, Ms. Drew.
Mr. Lopez, I think it's good we're doing this in the open. People need to know. Now, people are concerned, are they gonna, I hear often in the community, are you guys gonna close the schools down? And I keep saying, no. Did you not hear what our state legislature said? And then some people say, well, that's crazy. What about the kids? And then when you try to do something to help the kids, and I know this is a very controversial issue, but we're trying to make sure everybody, and I'm gonna keep saying that, everybody is safe. If it means the bus drivers, the nutritional workers, whomever, if they work for the district and they're gonna come in contact with our kids, we're all coming in contact with each other, then we all need to be safe. And I don't think it's anything wrong with saying that. We need to be safe.
Randy,
They should be able to come. Can I finish? Because I didn't interrupt you. I respect your opinion. I ask that you respect mine. I'm just saying I think we need to be safe. That's my biggest issue. We need to be safe. The kids need to be here. If we want them here, then we got to protect them.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Dr. Yeager.
Yes, my additional question is, there must have been a delay because I didn't hear her talking, so I apologize, but it was a pause, so I didn't hear you continuing talking. The sports is a big issue. Last year, a lot of our surrounding school districts did not shut down their schools due to COVID. They kept them open, they kept them going, and that's what I'm seeing what happens in our sports arena as well. There was lots of upset parents who felt like we should not have canceled sports, football, playing because of some of the outbreaks that's going on. How are we handling those situations to ensure that our students are getting a fair chance of being able to play sports, compete against each other? And we see our neighboring school districts are not canceling their activities for their students. How are we ensuring that we're giving our students a fair advantage in that area?
So I can respond to that. What I believe, several of the schools are doing a test to play. So if they have a positive case, they are testing the students who may have been a close contact. And if they're not positive, they're allowing them to continue to play. We are currently, I've talked with our nurse coordinator to add that element, not just to play, but to be in school. So if our students are close contacts, the Kansas Department, the KDHE has grants out there so that you can, parents obviously would have to opt in to the testing. We wouldn't require it for the students. But even if they're a close contact and they're testing on a more regular basis, and then some of the schools that I've spoken with, several of the kids do have vaccinations when they do have a positive case, so they're not required to quarantine, and all of those are like personal choices that families are making. But it really goes back to ensuring that the kids who are close contacts are not positive, and in order to do that, you have to do either surveillance testing or testing close contacts, and we're building the capacity to be able to do that for our students when they're in class and for those who are engaging in sports so that they can be in school as long as their test is not showing that as positive.
So can we add that to the next agenda to get a little more clarification around how that's determining for our sports? Because currently our community needs to know that information, and if there's policies that the board is not aware of as to what may make many of our teams cancel versus our surrounding school districts, that would also help us make informed decisions.
Yeah. So the reason they had to cancel is because of the number of students who are quarantined, and then they wouldn't have enough students to make up a team to actually compete. And so, yeah, I can bring what our current, how they're determining close contacts and what other school districts are doing when they have positive cases, I can share that information. But it really comes down to if they are positive or a close contact, and if they have to quarantine and they don't have enough to make up a team, that they wouldn't be able to compete.
Thank you. Ms.
And-
Humphries? Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
So if I understand right, we're looking at maybe discussing requiring vaccination or weekly testing, correct? And what would help me also would be, are they tested on Monday, they tested on Wednesday, they tested on Friday? What would the process be if someone declines to be vaccinated? Because right now it's really hard to say, yes, you have to be, without giving them a choice. And this sounds like we're looking at a policy that might give them a choice, one or the other. So we're not taking their personal beliefs away from them. We're just saying to keep our staff and kids safe. We feel this is our best tool in our toolbox right now. So a little bit more information about the process of the people who would decline it would be helpful too.
Thank you, Ms. Humphries. Ms. Page?
Yeah, and I just wanted to say, last year, if people remember, in Wyandotte County, Kansas City, Kansas, we were somewhere between 40 and 50. That's why we shut it down, because we're trying to keep everyone safe. And then you can't compare us. If you look at the data for other counties, we're still not, to me, it's just my personal opinion, where we need to be when you're like 42, and then others are in the 50s. We're trying to compare with them. They may not have shut it down, but they didn't have the numbers that we had. So we have to be careful. And then let's be real careful when we compare ourselves to Johnson County and to other places, because they don't have the numbers that we have. And it's still disturbing. I know some people don't think 42 is disturbing. I respect that. But it's something to think about. And again, we're trying to make sure everybody's safe. And our numbers were extremely high last year. And that's why we shut it down. And I know some people didn't like it. I get that. But you're trying to keep them safe. And if you look at the world news, what is it, Tennessee, 45 school districts have shut down. Now, in the South, the numbers are off the chain, and we could still be moving that direction because we don't seem to take things seriously.
Well,
And I think we are comparing on between the local schools. Piper had their games, Turner had their games, Edwardsville had their games, and they are in Wyandotte County. So when I'm saying compare it to our local schools, I'm truly in Bishop Ward. They all still have their games. And we, the students who will be impacted by those scholarships, by not being able to play, those are still our kids that live right down the street. So when I'm saying compare what they're doing, these are the ones who are still in Wyandotte County, who still played their games this past weekend.
So I think, and I'll just jump in real quick. Again, one of the things that I've really been proud of this board and this district is that we've been very consistent in how we've approached the pandemic and always saying that our students and staff safety come first and really doing whatever we can to really protect our staff and students. So I do just want to, again, applaud the board and leadership for always pushing us to do what we can to keep our students safe. As Dr. Stubblefield said, or as Ms. Humphries alluded to, as we continue to try to figure out what we can do to keep our students safe, this is a conversation that we felt was worth having to see if it's something that we wanted to move forward with. I do agree with Ms. Humphries. One of the things that would be helpful for the full board to have as much information that we can. If we can figure out how many staff are already vaccinated, if we had that number, I think that'd be helpful. A timeline, a process. What does that look like for when we would want to implement something like this? What would a potential policy look like? What have other school districts put in place, and what would that policy look like for us, for our districts? I think you're right. We are, unique in some aspects, so I would want to see what some examples of that policy would look like if we wanted to do vaccines and/or testing. I think that would be helpful. And as we continue to move forward, with if and when the vaccine does become eligible for younger children as well, what would our stance be then? What would that look like? Again, just to keep our students and our staff safe. But I think to Ms. Page's point, right, we want to try to keep our staff as safe as we can. And so that's why we're having this conversation. I know there's a lot of different tangents, whether it's sports or, music or other things that are a part of that. But for me, what would be really helpful is samples of what this policy might look like, the timeline to implement, process, and then potential impact towards staffing as well. If we did something like this where we're already short-staffed, how could this help or not? Because I think it hits on both with our staffing as well. And have we spoken to the NEA and gotten their feedback on whether, what their comments and thoughts are on this as well? So I think that would be helpful for me. So I want to make sure we continue this conversation. Again, I appreciate everyone's comments and thoughts and questions before we continue to move forward. And I don't want to cut off short, but are there other things that you would find helpful for Dr. Stubblefield and staff to bring to us as we continue this conversation? I think that's part of what today is just to hear from you in terms of what more information do you need, or what else would be helpful as we make informed decisions on this? Ms. Page.
Mr. Lopez, you mentioned staff. Have our numbers decreased where we've employed more staff? Because that's a problem. If you have X amount of vacancies for certified staff and X amount of vacancies for classified, well, the least thing we can afford is for people to get sick. They're struggling now trying to keep up. And we say we're concerned about them, but we don't want to put, as it was said earlier, an added burden that if we don't have enough people, then who's going to cover? Because I commend our superintendent, our assistant superintendent. They're teaching classes. They shouldn't have to do that. But I commend them for stepping up, and any other administrator who's trying to fill in, who's trying to fill the void. They should be commended for it. But it's even a more added burden if people are sick, if people are out. Who's going to replace them? Because, we're running out of people to fill the gaps.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Other questions or thoughts?
I would say my last question thought is how much would it cost the district to get the N95 mask that they are saying prevents at a higher level of transmission? It decreases it. So, maybe we can think about, even as we consider vaccine screenings, et cetera, what would it take to get the mask that at a higher level of efficiency?
And the next question would be, would that make a difference? That would just be another part of the information to help us make a good decision. The process that you use to decide whether to cancel a game because there's not enough students to play, maybe a short info sheet for board members and the public would help, because everything changes all the time, and a lot of things are long and have more information than we need to have to do a quick look. A sheet like that would be very helpful. And I know we're not talking about sports and COVID today. We're talking about staff vaccination. So I just want to make sure that we stay on task with that and realize that we're not talking about just teachers.
Right.
We're talking about all staff.
Right. Thank you, Ms. Humphries.
Well, let me just,
Dr. Nguyen.
again, the last comment for me is that, sure, there's a personal choice. However, the policy is to get vaccinated or get tested. So you have a choice. But with a new variant in our midst, it just needs to be presented like Ms. Page suggested. We're talking about maintaining safety, and I would even expand to the point of those students who are eligible to provide that opportunity. I think we already had a vaccination event at one of the high schools. So, we're wanting to improve and include and vaccinate as many of our staff and students as possible. And you're not invading anybody's personal choice or privacy, because, you know, you always have to make special provision. There are those rules that we all respect, but you also, if you don't participate, there has to be that other side. That there's testing weekly, and that's the task. So thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Nguyen.
And Mr. Lopez, and then that's where I forgot to ask this. Do we pay for the test if we're making it an option? Does the health department provide it for free?
So the testing, that's where the KDHE, the Kansas Department of Health, they have grants and testing and funding to pay for the test. So the weekly test would not, if that was the direction the board wanted to go, it would not cost the staff anything. We just have to build out the capacity to make sure, like either contract with a company or make sure we have the staff that can administer the test. It wouldn't mean that everybody has to test on the same day. You can do different buildings or location, but it will be a weekly test that is required. And that's those details, like what it could look like is what I can bring back, but it wouldn't be at a cost to the staff because there are grants with the KDHE, and then you can use ESSER dollars if that is necessary. But there are grants out there that are available.
And Randy, I would like to clarify what information I need. There should be a tracking of if the COVID for the quarantine was either by a student or by a teacher. That's the information I need. These quarantining requests or outbreak, was it because a student had the outbreak or was it because of the teacher had the outbreak? I think that would also help in the decision making.
So, Dr. Yeager, some of it, if you look at our dashboard, is on there, but in order to protect the identity of either a staff or a student, depending on the location, we have not necessarily clearly said if it were staff or a student, because it may be identifiable, but we can give the total numbers of students who have tested positive and total number of staff, and depending on the location, how many tested positive. That's like when you look at our dashboard, I think if it's less than 5 or 7, we don't actually put a number because it may be identifiable. Because if you're at a school with 15 teachers and the teacher tested positive, you put the 1, people kind of know that person who's missing is that person. So we'll provide that information. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm not asking for the drill down detail. I'm just the high level. Because again, you know, it seems like we're saying, you know, the teachers are the ones spreading it versus the other way. But again, I think that data would help.
Thank you, Dr. Yeager.
And Mr. Lopez, we never said, I never said it was the teachers. We just said we want to keep the teachers and the students safe.
Thank you, Ms. Page. Any other final thoughts or questions? Again, really want to make sure that this board has all the information that we can as we continue this discussion, and if and when we do make any type of decision, I just want to make sure you all have what you need. So if there's anything else, now would be a good time, or please email Dr. Stubblefield and I, and we can make sure that we look into that as well. Dr. Stubblefield, is there anything else that you need from the board as we continue moving, having this conversation?
No, I captured what you said. If there's additional information, if we know that we can gather it, if we can get it by the next board meeting.
Great.
Hey, Mr. Lopez, it's Yolanda.
Yes, Ms. Clark.
Before we close this part of the discussion out, and I think it's been mentioned, I just want to make sure I reiterate the policy and the procedure for how we're handling people that are being out. So how do we determine who's being out? There's been a lot of conversation that I know our staff has questioned, like where are we being consistent? And I'm sure there's a process, but for me, it would help me understanding the process of how do we determine who's been exposed.
Thank you, Ms. Clark. Okay.
I think my school sent home a cheat sheet that had, if you're vaccinated this, if you're not vaccinated that. Is that cheat sheet on our website?
Yes, it's on it should be on the COVID, the dashboard with the number of positive cases. But I think what Ms. Clark is asking, as far as how's it determined who's a close contact? Because that's when you run into how you fall on the flow chart.
Okay, thanks.
Yep, that is correct.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Stubblefield. Well, again, Board, thank you very much for the conversation, the discussion. This is ongoing as we continue to learn more. And again, please email myself and Dr. Stubblefield if you have additional questions or if there's more information that you think about that you think would be helpful in this conversation. We'll keep this conversation moving forward, though. Thank you so much for your time and your thoughts. And again, I think at the end of the day, I think we're all saying we want to make sure that we're doing what we can to keep our staff and students safe. This is an idea, a thought, but I think we all want to see our staff and students continue to be safe and healthy. We want to do what we can, but also respecting individuals' needs and choices. So we're going to do what we can in the best way that we can together. So I appreciate everyone's time and thoughts. Next on our agenda, I would entertain a motion to recess to executive session to discuss matters of non-elected personnel in order to protect the privacy interests of parties involved under COMA for 15 minutes, going in at 2:12.
So move.
Second.
Seconded. Thank you. Ms. Downing?
Yolanda Clark,
Yolanda Clark, yes.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries,
Janie Humphries, yes.
Randy Lopez,
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page,
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen,
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
and Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Great. Thank you. motion to come back into open session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Sorry, give me 1 second to make sure. Sorry. Motion to come back into open session, please?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Downing?
Clark. Maxine Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy, yes. Thank you. We're back in open session. Would entertain a motion to go back into executive session for an additional 15 minutes?
So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Downing?
Maxine.
Maxine Drew,
Maxine
yes.
Drew. Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Thank you. Motion to come back into open session, please.
So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded. Ms. Downing?
Clark. Drew.
Maxine Drew, yes.
Janie Humphries.
Janie, yes.
Randy Lopez.
Randy Lopez, yes.
Wanda Brownlee Page.
Wanda Brownlee Page, yes.
Dr. Nguyen.
Dr. Nguyen, yes.
Dr. Yeager.
Dr. Yeager, yes.
Great, thank you. We're back in open session again. Thank you, everybody, for your time today. We appreciate it. Dr. Stubblefield, thank you so much. Everyone have a great rest of your Tuesday. This meeting is adjourned.
Thank you.